All right, today we're going to dig into a proposed piece of federal law that has a huge goal to completely overhaul the family justice system in America. It's called the Family Justice and Accountability Act, and we're jumping right in. Wow. Right out of the gate, this bill does not pull any punches. This quote from its own preamble doesn't just suggest the system needs a few fixes. It calls it a complete and systemic failure. This really sets the stage for everything else, arguing that the whole foundation of family court is not just broken, but that it's actively hurting people.
So you have this massive problem that the bill lays out. How in the world do you even begin to tackle it? Well, it starts by saying this isn't just an issue we can debate for a while. It frames it as an immediate, full-blown emergency.
And this is a really key part of the whole thing. By calling it an emergency, the act is designed to skip any kind of waiting period and just take effect the second it's signed into law. The logic behind it is pretty clear. They're saying that children are in danger right now, and every single day of delay just means more harm.
So what's the first move? Well, it's a big one, and it's fast. States would have just 30 days to get on board. And the main event here is this new Independent Oversight Committee. Now, what's so important about that? It would be made up of regular people from the public, not judges, not lawyers, not court staff, and they would have the final say on whether a judge is biased. The idea is to completely break the cycle of the court system policing itself.
And that brings us to what this bill sees as the absolute core of the problem. It argues the whole crisis exists because of something it calls an accountability gap. Basically, a giant shield that protects the powerful people inside the family court system from facing any consequences for their actions.
So you gotta ask yourself, why is it so incredibly hard to hold a judge accountable, even when their decisions cause absolute devastation for a family? The answer, according to this bill, boils down to one single legal idea.
The answer? 2 words: judicial immunity. Now, according to the text of this bill, this is not some right that's written into the Constitution. Nope, it's a rule that the courts basically made up for themselves over the years. And this self-made protection, the bill argues, has put judges and other court officials above the very laws they're supposed to enforce.
Just look at this. The difference is night and day. On one side, you have the system the bill describes now, where immunity is the norm and bad behavior gets a free pass. On the other side is the future it wants to create, one where immunity is gone, completely, opening the door for families to sue, to get financial damages, and even for officials who cause harm to face criminal charges.
Okay, so we've identified the problem, right? A total lack of accountability. But how exactly does this bill propose to fix it? This next part is all about the nuts and bolts, focusing on making people liable for their actions and forcing the whole system into the light.
It really comes down to this 3-step approach. First, you get rid of the shield of immunity for everyone. Second, you give families a sword, the power to sue for the damage done to them. And third, you bring in the heavy artillery, serious criminal penalties, making it clear that this isn't just about a professional mistake, it's a potential felony. And to make all this stick, the bill calls for a level of transparency that is, honestly, kind of radical. Just imagine it, body cameras on every CPS worker who walks into a home, every single hearing, public, every case file, an open book that the family can see anytime they want. The goal here is pretty simple. Make it impossible for misconduct to hide in the shadows of secret files and closed-door meetings.
And if you cross these lines, the consequences are, well, they're incredibly serious. Look at these minimums. We're talking 5 years in prison for placing a child with someone you know is an abuser, 10 years if that misconduct leads to a child's death. And for something the bill calls state-sponsored child trafficking, it's proposing life in prison or even the death penalty. That is a massive shift in consequences.
But it's not all just about punishment. The bill also looks backward at the damage that's already been done. This part is all about making things right for the families the bill says have already been harmed by the system.
And the reason they're pushing for this is right there in the text. The bill argues that we're not talking about a few bad apples here. We're talking about decades of systemic problems that have led to real, measurable, and often just catastrophic harm for so many children and their families.
So what does making things right actually look like, according to this act? Well, it's way more than just a check for emotional distress. It includes real, tangible help, like paying for college for kids who were harmed, or giving money back to parents who lost their jobs or homes because of a case. It also calls for free therapy, and this is important, therapy that the victim gets to choose for themselves. And maybe most critically, it gets rid of the time limit for filing a claim in the most horrific cases of abuse.
The act also takes aim at some very specific and very controversial legal tactics.
This quote is a direct shot at the use of parental alienation theory. The bill basically says, wait a minute, how can you accuse a parent of alienation for trying to protect their child from abuse, while the court itself is alienating that child from their safe parent? It wants to ban that argument from being used, framing it as a dangerous tool that silences protectors. So, at the end of the day, after looking at the crisis, the causes, and these really massive proposed changes, we're left with this one big question. The Family Justice and Accountability Act is built on a single, powerful idea, that the only way to fix family court is with total transparency and absolute accountability. And the question it leaves us with is, could a shift this radical, this profound, actually work? Could it restore trust in a system that this bill argues has completely lost its way?